Integrity. That's called courage.
Free up your mind, use your imagination.
All you need to know is I'll get you there.
Learning.
Now that's the stuff leaders should be made of.
Welcome to the Open House podcast. Our guests are our students, opinionated, daring, and ridiculously smart. They ask tough questions about life and about learning. This podcast is by them and for them. Thank you so much, Kanishka and Shashwato, for joining us for the 10th episode of the Open House podcast. This is a mini milestone for us. And this is also a student special. This is the first time that we just have, an only student panel. The theme today is bullying in school. I think bullying can be very hard to define. Some people may think of it as a friendly joke that they've cracked, sometimes not realizing how it makes the other person feel. And from the perspective of the person on whom these jokes are being cracked, sometimes one could not mind at all, or sometimes you could really take it to heart. There is so much gray area, and I think that's why talking about bullying is so interesting. That's what we are here to talk about. We have Kanishka Verma, a 10th grader from DPS Arkipuram from New Delhi. She loves public speaking and theatre and has a deep passion for web development and design and anything related to technology. She is a part of the theatre club at Open House. Our second speaker is Shashwato Ray, a 12th grader from Calcutta. He loves to read, write, and talk, and his interests include public speaking, politics, and analytical writing. He's got a strong penchant for research and justice, and I guess it's fitting that he's at the debate club at Open House. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. I want to go back to what I started off by saying that bullying can be very hard to define. How would you guys define it? And please draw from incidents you've experienced or seen around you.
So basically, to me, bullying, I think, is actually depends on the perspective from which you look at it. So you can look at it from the perspective of the person who's bullying you or the person who is being bullied. So I think that in general, in today's world, especially, bullying is no longer that idea with an where there's an aggressive kid who has a low self-esteem and just abusive parents, and he's coming out and showing all their anger in school. I think the idea of bullying has progressed from that a lot. I think in a modern society, in the modern perspective, it's more about an imbalance of power and a difference in societal position. So if there are two people who have a differential societal position, a person who's higher in the ranks, be it in academics, be it in extracurriculars, or be it just because of their age, I think they tend to exploit their position as much as possible, to maintain that societal standing. And one of the ways in which they do that is pushing the others down the ladder as much as possible. So from the perspective of the bully, I think that maintenance of that societal standing is very important. And from the perspective of the person who's getting bullied, I think it's a very difficult experience that depends from person to person. As you said, that I may just be teasing someone, but it may be offensive to that person. Maybe because of their orientation, maybe because of their gender, maybe because of the way they've been brought up, their culture. So I think that in general, if there is a difference in the way people act, the way people speak, I think that is one of the incentives towards bullying, be it in a school arena or anywhere else.
Yeah. So, like, specifically talking about India, what I have seen is that when you say that, like, I have been bullied, what people will say is that, was there something wrong with how a person behaved with you physically? Like, that's a very cliched mindset that something wrong happened physically. What we don't want to understand is that more often than not, it's something very, related to emotional and, mental feelings, basically, I would say. So, basically, for me, what I have experienced, what I've seen around me, that people think that when if I go and tell someone that I have been bullied by someone or anything like this, people will take it in a negative way, and they don't want to tell, and they just keep it inside of themselves, and like they just bottle up all the feelings, and that really is often, obviously, like anything, like bottling up feelings for a long period of time can be never good for anyone. And like for me, I mean, like many people, it's just that we don't use that term, but almost each one of us have actually experienced bullying in some form or another, I guess.
Yeah, I think there is some truth to that.
Yeah.
Shashwat, so from what you were saying, it sounded like bullying and popularity are just extremely closely like linked. Can you guys talk about that? There are I think dynamics in school and in batches, like among friend circles, are very interesting that way.
Yeah, so I think that what you said, that can be the closest we can get to talking about societal position, popularity. The popular kid at school versus the jock, the nerd. So there's these distinctions that we have. Literally every teen drama in Hollywood, which shows us these classrooms, they have these distinctions. There's a place where the jocks sit, there's a place where the nerds sit, and there's a place for the popular kid at school. And any one of us who watches things like Riverdale or any other teen drama like Trinkets, etc., we see this happening right in front. And this is true for Indian schools as well, for my school as well. Like I tell this story to many people. Like in our school, which is Don Bosco, so there are 4 rows in our class. The 4th row, which is the leftmost row, it's reserved for the jocks, people who love sports, people who love football. They're always like, let's end this class and let's go out and play. The 2nd row is for the nerds. This is today's homework, this is what is to be done tomorrow. And most people are actually angry at them because they keep reminding teachers that this is to be done and they don't get free periods as a result. The 3rd row is a bit weird because it's a mixture. So there are popular kids there are a few nerds there, and they don't get along very well. And the 1st row, which is at the rightmost corner, they are socially introverted. They don't talk to anyone, they just sit alone. And so these distinctions in the classrooms, they're weird. Like when I first joined Don Bosco, which was like 2 years back, so I'm new to the school. I was joined in 2019, and it was weird for me as well because this was a new environment, and there were these distinctions that were clear in the classroom. And I think that is where the idea of difference in societal positions comes in. So the kid who's popular, the boy or the girl or whoever, if they're popular across all the 4 or 5 sections, they'll try to maintain that standing. So yeah, I'm the popular kid, I need to be in that position. And in most cases, as I have seen, the people who are bullies around me, I won't take names, of course, because again, as she said, there's a stigma around that term itself. If I call someone a bully, there's the idea of a victimhood that comes to the bully themselves. So from what I have seen, is that these people who actually tend to be bullies, they lack pro-social behavior. So they have this aura, they have this charisma that attracts people to them, but they can't have very close friends. They have a trouble making very close friends. They have a trouble getting close to people. So, and that kind of speaks to their inability to empathize with others. And that's how they technically become bullies. So teasing people, as Kanishka said, it may be physical bullying, it may be verbal bullying, it may even be cyber bullying. So getting to that position, they feel like they've been cut off from everybody else. And again, being called the most popular kid is a good thing. They feel good. They have a heightened sense of self-respect. But again, it's like a balloon. It's empty inside. It's filled with air only. So I think that is something bullies don't realize, but also that is something that comes out of these distinctions that are very well present in school. Like I think not just in Calcutta, in Bangalore, from where you are, from Delhi, where Kanishka is from, I think these distinctions are there everywhere. So Kanishka, I'd like to ask you as well. So just as Siddhika said, what distinctions do you think are there in your school at Delhi as well?
So, like what you just said right now, I could relate to almost everything. Like, when we go out in breaks, you'll see 5, 6, like crowds of people standing, and obviously all of them will be different people. Some will be popular, some of them who don't talk to each other, but they just stand there. So, honestly, what I think is that this is like, if you go and tell someone that that person is bullying or something, I've seen some teenagers that they won't be like, oh, that person is a bad person. They'll say, wow, that person is so cool, people are scared of that person, and that person has such a good image in the front of all students. And this happens a lot, like basically with people who are actually like what we see. Like at this moment, I've seen that most of the teenagers, what they want is popularity. And when they see people like this around them, they are like, okay, they won't call them bully, they'll just call them people who are superior to the others, and people are actually scared of them. So that's
Right.
what I feel.
That's very interesting. I mean, can you also, like, in the same way that you have identified like what a bully is like, can you do the same for uh, the people who end up getting bullied? Is there a stereotype? You know, there is that stereotype that it's the nerds who get bullied or it's the introverts who get bullied. Is that true still?
I'm a
I
nerd. Kanishka, go forward.
Yeah, so like I'll speak from my experience, what I have seen. So there was this girl in one of the institutions, and what I saw is that she was amazing at co-curriculars and studies. Like she was sporty and she was really nice, but the only thing was that she couldn't speak to others, as in she couldn't take her feelings out in front of anyone. And I think some seniors were actually mentally bullying her a lot, and due to the reason that she couldn't speak to her friends or the teachers or anyone, she left the school. She's actually one of the best, most talented people that I've seen. Definitely not a nerd, someone who indulges in everything, I would say. But just because of the fact that she couldn't raise her voice in front of everyone, she wasn't strong enough to actually fight this off. So,
Hmm.
Yeah, so like taking off from where you left it, like I think that there's no particular stereotype for either the bully or the person being bullied. I think uh, getting bullied, it extends a lot beyond being a nerd or being an intellectual. I think the main focus over here that a bully searches for when they're like, it's not that they're like searching for people to bully or something like that, but it's like whenever a person is getting bullied, I think the sole reason of getting bullied rests on difference. So there's if a person is different from the crowd, from what is considered normal in any way whatsoever. Like I remember when I was in class 4, and this is a memory, I don't know how it stuck with me for all these years, but it's very vivid. There was a guy in our class who was South Indian, and he had a you know he had a distinct way of speaking, had a distinct accent, as we usually find from people who are fluent in South Indian languages. So when he spoke English, he had a distinct accent to it, and I guess he was also raised in South India, so he was accustomed to South Indian food. So whenever he used to bring lunch to school, he used to bring South Indian food like idli and dosa, and that was different from the others. So at that point of time, we were all kids. We were all class 4 kids, and half of us didn't understand what bullying actually was. But what I remember vividly was people calling him names, not just because of his accent, but also because of the food that he brought in. So it's like there are different ways in which people can be exploited. As we grew up, as we started learning things about sexual orientation and gender, I saw people getting bullied because of their sexual orientation. Just because a person posts on Instagram, I am bisexual, that person is like thrown out of the school community forever. And I know a person from Don Bosco, who has faced this. And many people, as Kanishka said, they are many people who get bullied. Like the way they are socially restricted, the way they're thrown out of the crowd, they don't even have a voice to speak. They don't even have a means of speaking. And I think this lack of communication, not just between parents and children, but also between teachers and students, and school officials and students, and other members of the community. I think that is one of the major problems why bullying is increasing. And back to your question, as I said, like again, this social difference, any form of difference, it can be an incentive for bullying.
So from what both of you are saying, it actually seems like, we've really gone past that age of physically bullying people, and it's the words that really hurt most now. How
Yeah.
do you then stand up to bullies? I mean, a lot of people say just ignore it, but that's really not how it works. You can't just ignore it. How do you stand up to bullies then? Do you guys have an answer? I mean,
so yeah,
it's a
definitely.
tough one.
What I have seen in Indian parents, maybe when you go home and tell them that something happened with you, what they would suggest is do not fight, just ignore that person and let it be.
Right.
This happens a lot. So, and what happens is that we can ignore it for a day, we can ignore it for maybe a week, but it's possible that the person might stop afterwards. But that gets inside of you, and it's just bottled up you, and you're not venting it out. It's in, and something, anything that you do not like is happening with you and is inside your mind. You can never ignore it. You might be able to ignore it in front of you, but inside of you only, you will never be able to ignore it. It will stay with you forever. So I think, for me, what I would very strongly say that the only way to fight it is raise your voice. you know we see that, yeah, maybe there will be people who will make fun of us, but I'm sure, like, out of 100 people, if 99 of them are making fun of you, there will be one person who will say, no, this person is right, and that person will stand up for you. And like most of us, I've been studying in my school since, I think, for the past 10 years, and I did not know till last year that we have such organizations in the school which, like, anti-bullying and stuff. I never knew about it. So most of us do not even know that school actually has that backup system for students, that they will the school will stand up for us. Many times it happens that teachers are, people are not interested in listening to you, what happened to you. But again, I think all of us have that one favorite teacher who you can always go to and tell that person, and they will stand up for you.
Hmm.
So again, just raise your voice, that's it.
And I
Yeah.
guess someone to confide in also.
Exactly, definitely.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the raise your voice idea. But I also think that, beyond raising the voice, just as Kanishka said, so anyone who's getting bullied, they have a very hard time. And I think that getting a person to confide with is very important. That actually flows down to a larger conversation about how we treat mental health in society, and how we treat, how we need more counselors at school, people we can speak to, as you said, people we can confide in, etc. But I also think that, in the long term, in order to curb bullying as a whole, just raising one's voice isn't enough. What I think is that we also need to work with the bullies, because if I call someone a bully, let's say there's a person A and a person B. Person A is bullying person B. As I said before, when person B goes in public and calls that person A bully, the person A doesn't like that label. There's a sense of victimhood now that's been associated both with A and with B. And in the end, A gets even greater incentive to discriminate against B. A becomes even angrier, and B becomes even more depressed. And we don't get something good out of this. So what I think about this solution is that we need to increase the conversation about this. Like right now, 3 of us are talking about it. Let's increase it to 10, 15. Let all people come together and speak about their experiences. But those conversations must also include the bully. The bully must also come forward and say that these are my experiences. This is why I did this. Maybe there's a sense of guilt, maybe there's a sense of shame that we don't know about, because every bully also has a backstory. And I was doing a little bit of research about this topic on the net as well, and I found a very interesting a phrase, perhaps, that perfectly fits this. And it said that remove labels, address behaviors. I think that is what we need to focus on more when it comes to the bullies and the bullied. If we can engage the bullies and the bullied in a conversation with each other, make each other understand how they've affected each other's lives, each other's consciences, I think in the long run, it helps both sides of the argument.
I was actually going to talk about this a little later, Shashwato, but since you brought it up, is the bully always bad? Because my instinct says that it's not as black and white as it appears. Bullies are also like emotionally complex people.
Yeah, so like you said right in the beginning, and I think that was like the pivotal point, that there's always a gray area when it comes to the bullies and the bullied. So every bully has some motivation, some kind of motivation that's driving them. There can be social anxiety, there can be problems at home, there can be sadism. It can also be because of a school environment that's not positive and uplifting. It can be because of existing morals of society, existing societal conventions. And it can also be because of, you know, because of the people around them, the people they choose to mix with, the people they choose to interact with. So I think that, as I said, like understanding the bully's point of view is also very important, because there's this existing ideal about people who talk about bullying, that the person who is bullied, they have numerous mental health problems in the long run, and that is very true. People who are bullied, they are scarred for life. But if I look at it from the perspective of the bully as well, they have these problems plaguing them throughout as well. And I think that at this point of time, we need to work with both sides of this. Because until unless the bully understands where they are wrong, until unless the bully gets to know that this is my mistake, this pattern of bullying is going to continue in the future as well. And like what you may see as 6, I may see as 9. So the bully may find a reason for it. He may think that he's doing they may think that they're doing something right. And I think that a proper conversation, telling them whether they're doing it, whether what they're doing is justified or not, I think that is very important when we talk about this conversation.
I'm not even sure that there are two sides, because a lot of people who are bullied themselves end up becoming bullies. Have you seen that, Kanishka? Have you seen that around you?
Yes, I mean, not exactly around me. Do you guys remember that movie Hichki by Rani? I think Rani Mukherjee was
I
the
haven't seen that
actress.
one, yeah. But tell me about it.
I
Yeah.
have seen it, yes.
So basically, there was this class of 40 students, and I think I don't remember exactly, but all of them were like basically bullies. And the reason was that they were actually, they used to trouble everyone in the school. And the reason was they were themselves bullied by everyone in the school, basically because they were very poor and they did not belong to that kind of, as he just said, that the social difference was actually the factor here, that economic conditions between them were very, different. So like those people, they used to make fun of them and everything, and that made them rough from inside, those students who were actually not very rich. And that's what actually made them who they were. It wasn't like, and even in the end of the movie, all of them, she realizes that all of them were really pure from their hearts, and they were actually kind people. But the circumstances, the way they were behaved with earlier, actually made them of that sort.
Right. When I look back at my time in school, I can think of a lot of things that I said that I shouldn't have, or things that possibly like impacted people. Uh, Sometimes we do say things unconsciously and don't realize how it makes the other person feel. Can you guys like talk a little bit about that? Maybe draw from personal experiences as well.
Like for me, I'm a very extroverted person, which comes with a very bad temper.
Okay.
So when I have a fight, I'll be the one who will be saying everything, like, whatever comes to mind, I'll just say it. But after like some time, I realized that what I said would have actually hurt people. But I realized that it's too late. I mean, I might have already hurt that person. So I think till class 9 also, I mean, till class 8, class 9 started, I was like this. I got into fights so much, and I used to, like shout a lot. But
I'm having a hard time imagining that, Kanishka.
but I don't know then what changed, and now I've just tried to be like a bit calm, because I realized that because what happened is that earlier what used to happen, it was me who used to shout and everything, and then I saw people who used to shout back at me, and then I realized that how much it hurts to like listen to all of that, and that's what actually made me think that okay, I need to be
Right.
calm and deal with things. Yes.
Yeah, I think that this idea of offending someone by saying something wrong, I think it affects all of us, right? And as we grow as individuals, as I did, like I don't exactly remember what I said, but I remember that just like Kanishka, I didn't have many fights per se, but just small, how do I put it, arguments with people at school. But and now I realize that was because I didn't know something about them. Like as we grow up from 8th and then 9th and 10th, and as we grow up to teenagers, we learn more things about the world around us, things that we didn't know before. Weird things that are actually that were considered abnormal before but are now being considered normal. We understand that just being different doesn't make them bad. And as these ideas, as they get into our heads, I think we realize that we might have offended someone, as I did many a times. But I know and most of my friends around me, they've been quick to point out if I've been rude to them, if they thought that they were feeling pressured, or if they thought that they were not feeling good on, from what I was saying to them. And I wasn't that easy a kid to just say, okay, I'm sorry. No, that would lead to another fight and then another fight. And it would be long before I finally realized what mistake I had made. But I tried to do my part by reaching out to them and saying, I'm sorry. So
and I think saying sorry is one of the hardest things to do.
yes, it is. Like after you fought with them 10, 11 times and you said, no, I am right, you're wrong, I haven't offended you, you're too sensitive. After that, when that realization dawns on you and you're like, okay. No, I did something wrong.
Yeah.
Typing those words is hard. Leave apart saying them.
Saying it, yeah. You're absolutely right. I think a lot of us take the easy route out and just text an apology. And the digital age allows us to do these things, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's also like more sincere when you say it out loud and face the person. I mean, clearly we've been talking about the bully and the bullied, and we know that this is like not a black and white thing. But I also want to now like talk a little bit about people who are silent spectators to the whole thing. Why is that? Why do people not feel like they should say something?
I'm just going to take off from like what you said. Like, why are people silent spectators on this? Like, it's very easy to come up and just say that people who are silent in times of injustice, they are helping the injustice. Martin Luther King's words. But I think that there's reason behind that. There's a big reason why people are silent when something like this happens. Number one, people at high school are teenagers and they like drama. Of course, they like drama. And it's a very, I don't know if this is right, me saying this, but like putting it in the raw words from the perspective of a teenager, they like drama and they don't want it to end. But going a bit deeper, what I find is, as Kanishka said, like they don't want to be in the position of the person being bullied. Like if there are 100 people who are watching this bullying the person who's getting bullied, and if someone goes up and tries to support the person getting bullied, that person essentially enters that that social realm of the different being. Like they're completely alienated from the normal crowd that's looking at the bullying and saying, yes, this is right. And they don't.
Nobody wants that.
Yeah, nobody wants to be associated with that alienated crowd. And again, there's this. I think that the bully also tries to do that, tries to exploit that difference, as I was saying. So they want to be on the safe side themselves. They don't want themselves to be in the position that that they are seeing in front of them. And I think in the long term, it goes on to affect the entire environment at school. Like people trying to be safe themselves, they're not only hurting the person who's getting bullied like mentally, but they're also giving incentive for the bully to keep doing this. They don't want to be the next person in front of this big guy who's very popular at school. They don't want to be the voice of opposition because they're powerful, they're socially powerful, and they can do a lot.
Right.
Definitely, I agree with everything that he said. So, like, to start off, basically, it's like most of the teenagers, they would like to be on the side where the majority of the population is. Like, if the people are, if someone is popular, I wouldn't like to be with someone who isn't popular, right? I mean, that's, the common perspective, I would say. Like, what happens is that it happens with me too. So when I see two people fighting and I think that someone needs help, I will go and shout at the other person who is actually doing this, and then I see all my friends and my teachers coming up and telling me, why did you go and why were you doing this? It isn't even related to you. So that's a very big thing, that people just come up and they'll tell you that why did you have to speak when it is not it doesn't bother you, right? It isn't related to you, so why did you do that? So
Not
that's
your place.
exactly. So I mean, that's also a very big reason that people do not generally intervene, because they think that anyways, in schools, so this happens very much, that people will come up and tell you that please stay out of this is our fight, let us solve this. So I mean, and yes, the drama thing, that's completely true. I mean, if two people are fighting, you will not find less than 10-15 people surrounding them, just seeing them what is happening, just to enjoy it. I don't know why, but yeah, that gives some sort of pleasure to people, I guess.
I think
I
that's
don't know.
human nature, right?
Yeah,
Was I wrong in saying that?
not at all. I mean, that's very, very true. Everyone would relate.
But if it makes you guys feel any better, I'm in my 20s and you continue to love the drama. Like I think it's human nature, right?
Yeah.
We we like these stories and we like some excitement. Whether like for working people, it's office drama. It's not high school anymore, but it's office drama, and I think that continues. Um, Kanishka, you also spoke about seeing someone very close to you get bullied. Can you talk a little bit about that experience? How did you see it emotionally impacting your friend?
Yeah, so I think it's something that happened 3 years back, I guess. And I was also one of those children who used to be with the popular kind of, the popular students and everything, because I was like a very social kid, very social, like always talking. And I've been one of those child, like who the teacher scolds in every class that why you speaking so much. So
Hmm.
I'm like that. And so the person I'm talking about, a very, very, very silent kid who did not speak at all. And what happened basically that she used to sit with my best friend. And I mean, basically she was actually the person, my best friend is actually who was actually seeing this very closely. But like when this started, I did not know, and honestly, I did not bother at that time. But I saw this, that it eventually, when she did not take it out in front of anyone, it just got stopped in inside of her, and she wasn't taking it out. I think many people did try to talk to her, but she never wanted to talk to it about anyone. Definitely, I do not know the reason why it is so bad. And after some time, I just one day, our teacher said that she has left the school. And I was honestly very shocked, because I did not know that this could actually lead to something so big. And I think that was really, I was really disheartened, and I just felt very guilty that I was actually in the same class and everything, but still I was literally useless and of no help to her. And I even didn't, and what actually hurts is that what is happening, in you couldn't do anything to prevent that.
Hmm.
So
If I may.
yeah.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, so I think that this experience that Kanishka was talking about, I think like it also speaks to the general tendency of victim shaming that we have in schools as well. I think one of the reasons why her friend, she didn't want to open up about the incident, was because she didn't want to be labeled as a victim. And I think that most people, whenever they face an experience like this, be it verbal bullying or physical bullying, or even bullying at the hands of teachers or people around them who are socially superior, I think they don't want to talk about it because they don't want to be associated with something of this kind. They don't want this label of victim on them, and I think that deters them and prevents people around them from getting to know more about it as well.
Are teachers aware of of all these instances and of the extent of bullying?
Yeah, well, I think that it also depends on the amount of communication that we have between the teachers and students. Like many students, as you said, as Kanishka said, that they have one favorite teacher whom they can talk to. And but in many cases as well, if teachers, they tend to be friends of students. Like in most schools I have been to, teachers say that I try to be your friend, to listen to what you say, to look at it from your perspective. I think in those circumstances, when teachers come down to our levels, it helps to make better conversation. But sometimes they're not. Like sometimes teachers are harsh on us, maybe for good reasons, of course. But I think that you know letting the teachers speak to us openly. I think it's important not just for the school administration but also for building a positive environment at school. And from my personal experience, like most of the teachers I've interacted with, I've tried to be as open as I could with them. But again, I think that, if teachers are part of the conversation, it's good, it's powerful. But sometimes I think that teachers, they're a bit cut off from us. I I had an experience like this, a few not a few days, I think about a year back, like right before we broke off because of this entire pandemic scenario. So it was one of my teachers, and I think that uh, this is a situation I think many people have also faced. Like they were a bit, I don't want to use the word harsh, like they were a bit strict in their own way. But I saw that teacher right in front of me. Like, there was a boy in our class who was, like Kanishka was saying, that guy was very introverted. Like he was good at studies, but he didn't speak at all, and he had a slight stutter. And that guy, he tried and explained that to the teacher, when that teacher was repeatedly calling him up again and again, saying that, answer my question, I want you to answer the question I've been asking. He tried explaining it to the teacher. No, I have got a stutter, I can't speak that well, especially in front of so many students, a class of 42. And the response this elicited was that the teacher asked him his name, the guy couldn't even finish the sentence. And the response in the class was that everyone started laughing uproariously. And in situations like this, when the teacher isn't able to connect with the students, understand what the student is trying to say, I think that this also is a cause for increased bullying. That guy who had a stutter, who couldn't speak, I think that, I was not very good friends with him, I didn't know him that well. But he was socially awkward, and he was like cut off again, and people who were more popular, they used this opportunity to laugh at him. And I think that was a very poignant moment for me as well.
Just put him in a spot for no reason.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think that it actually depends from teacher to teacher and from student to student. Like, I remember, like, I have always, like, since every class begins, like, every session begins, I try to be in, like, good relations with my class teachers so that I can actually speak to them whenever I need to. But at the same time, I have seen students who can't speak to the teacher, and the teacher is also not very interested in listening to those students because they do not have that kind of bond. Because the teacher is not interested in solving their problems, and the child is also not interested because they aren't that close to each other. I think that we can't really say that there are teachers who wouldn't want to listen to you, or there are students who wouldn't want to actually speak out, but it actually is the difference that is actually made because of the lack of conversation, as you just said, that we're not able to tell teachers, and basically there's this feeling of fear, I would say, that the teacher will like me talking about all this. Maybe I don't know what exactly it is, but something or the other stops them from approaching the teacher.
Is bullying, I mean, addressed in school at a like larger, at a macro level? Is it addressed? Are there seminars? Are those things being done?
In my experience, like I've attended several seminars throughout school about several issues regarding growing up and adolescence, and things around it. But I have never, in all these 12 years of school, ever attended any session on bullying. And I think that even though the conversation about it is increasing, because many of our teachers at school, they like genuinely want to talk about it. Like from many of the stories that we're given to analyze, movies we're asked to watch, essays we're asked to write, I think that teachers are trying to engender that conversation about bullying. But on a macro level, as you said, like seminars and all, like I personally have never attended one, or there weren't those kind of opportunities at school as well. But I won't even say that it's being swept under the rug. Saying that it's swept under the rug is quite wrong. Like, because as we grow, there's an increasing conversation about several issues, and bullying is one of them. Like a few days ago, I wrote a little piece on bullying with an organization called Mind You, which is an organization based on mental health. And so I think that it's also student-led organization. So I think among students there's an increasing awareness about it, and that people are actually ready to talk about it, because we as students, we have minds that are easily flexible, and we can like talk about different things with ease, accept new ideas. I think the conversation is growing. It's slow, but it's progressing.
So I think I have, when you talked about this I actually, some kind of experience from past actually came into my mind. Actually, something happened with me. I think not a very big thing, but I think 2 years back, I think I was the monitor of my class. I was standing and everyone was sitting and the teacher wasn't there in the class. So I think we were in seventh, and some 2, 3 11th just came inside our class, and she started shouting at me that why don't you let people go out? And she was just saying weird kind of things, and I got really scared. And there were other people as well, other monitors, who told her to not like say all these stuff and just go out of the class, but they weren't listening to us. So, and I was like, she said that I said something, and she was like, tell me what your name is. And I really boldly said, my name is Kanishka. And once I had done that, I was very scared that what did I just do? Why? I mean, she will just call her friends, popular friends, and maybe they'll bully me. And, I had that feeling in my mind. And, but then I thought that I would just, tell about this to my teacher. I told my teacher about this. She took this to the headmistress, and it actually, they took it up to the vice principal. The vice principal called those students in front of us. She very strictly, she scolded them, and then she asked us that, do you want to actually report this to the, I don't remember the name of the organization, but the school is in contact with some organization. And I was like, no, it was a very small thing, we don't want that to happen. But I was honestly very surprised. I did not expect such a reaction, that actually they will actually ask me if I want to report a case against this thing, because it wasn't such a very big thing. And so I think that most of us, like in the process also, when the headmistress and the vice principal, they got to know, I was very scared that they'll scold me for just making a fuss out of something which doesn't even make sense. But then I realized that no, actually teachers are there who will support you throughout. So that actually is
That's
something
great to hear, honestly, and thank you so much, Kanishka, for sharing that, because I think if there are other students, whoever listens into this podcast, at least can then actually suggest this, that this be done in their schools as well, and this partnership with these organizations be made. Do you guys have any like other sort of crazy ideas about how to address bullying in the school environment?
Yeah, I definitely want something. You said crazy.
Yeah.
I think that the best way to curb bullying at the school level, through something quote unquote crazy, is that excuse the gun that I had in my hand. Uh, so I think that I watched this in a series a few days back, and I was really gripped by it. Like, what we can do is, like, we can put the bullied guy and the bully in a library and force them to work together to build a project. Be it arranging all the books in the library, making a new shelf for books, helping the librarian do something. Like, force them to work together no matter what, and until and unless the work is done, they won't get rid of each other. And I think in the long run, I think it creates a bond between the two individuals. Like a proper gray side will be created with the mixing of the black and the white.
That is very interesting, because like friendships are made through these shared memories and through these shared experiences. My what I notice is that the generation today that's in school is very socially aware, and for the most part of it, quite empathetic. Do you guys agree with that? Do you guys think that you all are like very empathetic people, your generation?
I most certainly think so. Like, I won't speak to myself, but for the people around me, like, I think that yes, like, as I see my friends and friends I've made over the past few years through open house as well. I've seen that people are gradually becoming more empathetic. Compared to our parents or their generation, the generations before us, I think people are becoming more accepting towards things that are different. And to be very honest, like in 11th and 12th, the for the last 1 or 2 years, the number of bullying incidents that I have personally seen has gone down. And I think that as we are all growing up, as people around me are growing up, I think that we all have this kind of tendency to speak to each other about these issues. Try to, even if we fight, even if we argue, know, let each other know when someone is doing something that's, not right, that's offensive, or that's wrong. And, I think that the number of bullies will gradually decrease over time because there's an increased tendency of being empathetic, and the card is being played in the reverse right now. Anyone who's not empathetic or anyone who's not you know that accepting, they are getting cut off from the mainstream. And that kind of gives them an incentive to know, to say, like, no, I need to accept this because this is the new world, this is the truth, and if I have to survive here, I need to accept the people around me and become more empathetic to their problems and understand what they're going through.
Definitely, I agree completely to what he said. I don't know. I mean, all the thoughts on this has actually come to me from him only. I didn't. I see what I think is like even yeah. So when I joined this open house theater club, so initially I was a bit scared because I saw that everyone, like all my tribe members, were in class 12 and I was in class 9. And I was scared that how I just had this feeling of with all of them are superior to me, they're better in everything. But the way they they approached, the way they talked, and it was so sweet that I actually have they have actually become people who I can actually go to and tell them my problems. Though they are so, they are, though we have a age difference, but that isn't, a problem anymore. They are like, they have become the best of my friends. So like, obviously things have changed. People have started becoming very understanding, and maybe yeah, there are many people today also. If you go and tell them what is happening with you, they'll maybe just laugh and they'll be like, "What? I'm not interested." But yeah, but there are people who are more, more often than not, you will find people who are actually interested in talking to you because even they have something inside of them, and it because they actually find a companion where even they can take out something. So yeah.
That actually brings me to the end of my questions for the two of you. If you guys have any questions for each other, please, now is the time to ask.
Well, I don't have any questions as such. Like, it was a very lively conversation that we had. Like, we talked about many things. But I think that, one of the things that I would like to ask, Kanishka and you as well, is that when it comes to bullying and when it comes to the effects of bullying on mental health, like, how do you think that bullying affects not just the person who is getting bullied and the bully as well? How does it affect their mental health and their conscience in the long run?
Kanishka, why don't you take this first?
Yeah, definitely. So that's an amazing question. Like these days, mental health is a very prominent topic as well. Like I've seen that, like since very recent times, nobody used to talk about mental health, and now it has actually become people have started thinking of it as something. I believe that mentally it has a very bad impact on each one of us, and I mean, not obviously. I mean, till now I haven't really seen bullying, like someone who has bullied me, but I have had those experiences where I felt that some emotionally, I don't know, like there are when fights and all happen, obviously it emotionally it actually makes you feel bad. It makes it actually impacts you for a very long period of time, and I'm sure the impact of bullying is much more than that. So I think when a normal fight can make us feel so upset and it can dishearten us. So bullying is definitely something much more than that.
No, I think for the bully, and like I'm drawing from like one personal experience where I think said some things that I really regret now. I think that's what the bully then carries, regret and like some level of guilt. Um, but I feel like to be there, you have to be like sort of self-aware and know that what you did was not right. That may happen 5 years down the line, 10 years down the line, even 20 years down the line. So I think for the bully, there is some level of regret and guilt also. And I also believe that at a deep level, that you say these things because of stuff that you are dealing with, because of some of your own insecurities that you are projecting on other people. So I think that would be the impact on the bully. I think on someone who's bullied, I feel like it stays for quite a while, because just one comment can trigger an insecurity and you may get over it, but I think at the back of your mind you do remember that, hey, someone made fun of you for being short, or someone made fun of you for for your hairstyle. That I feel like it stays with you. You may not hold it against that person, but I feel like you remember that, hey, someone made fun of me.
One thing I would add here, what you said, I really think that, you said that like there's a guilt in the bully, right? So I feel that every time someone does something wrong, that person knows deep down that that person is doing something wrong. We it's like we want to tell ourselves that we haven't done anything wrong, but we know that our it's the intuitive mind knows it, that there is something wrong. So even the bully, like as you said, that maybe we'll realize it after years and years, but yes, that person will realize it, that what he did or what she did was actually wrong.
Yeah, but like I think at the end of the day, like best way for the bully to do something better or to do something good, I think is through self-awareness. Like if a person is self-aware about the mistakes they've made, I think that's where the bridges have been, fixed for the time being.
Yeah, to be a little more connected with your feelings, I guess.
Yeah.
We all benefit from it. But thank you so much, Ashwato and Kanishka, for this conversation. I can see that obviously like a lot has changed, and we do live in good times where people are more empathetic, where people are more understanding. You guys mentioned that there is victim shaming and there is glorification of bullies. Let's hope that with conversations that like these, we can tilt that balance and actually like create, I think, more create better environments.
Yeah, all hail the Problem Solvers Caucus.
Yes. All right. Thank you so much, guys. This was really lovely.